Good afternoon and welcome to Lunchtime Coaching, where we add value to people's lives. My name is Kevin Britzer. I'm an executive coach and international leadership facilitator and host to the Lunchtime series happening every day at 12 on eBiz Radio. Today we have a wonderful lady joining us, and I'm just gonna say welcome to Lunchtime Coaching. Heidi, thank you for joining us today. Please tell everybody who you are and what you do. Heidi Poulton.
Thanks, Kevin. So I'm an executive coach, also a leadership facilitator. I work at various business schools, doing personal mastery, high-performing teams, and program directing, as well as doing the executive coaching for my own clients and other work around teams and personal mastery for other clients. So a whole lot of different stuff that I do, but the main bit about it is helping others to be the best version of themselves, and that's my purpose, I believe, in life. So that's a little bit, very little about who I am.
Yeah, you and I had this conversation a week ago, and we were just chatting about who you are and what you do. And I was like, it's such a beautiful conversation and it's such a beautiful story. Don't you just want to sort of give us a bit of overview on how this started for you and how you got yourself into this position? Because I get a lot of conversation from a lot of people on, especially LinkedIn, who see the actual series and watch the videos, and they'll message going, "Oh wow, what advice do you have for me to be able to get into coaching?" And people do see it as a glorified job, but it's hard. It's not the easiest thing out there. But I mean, share with the audience today, like, where did you start? How did you come about this? And how did it work for you?
Yeah, so it's not the easiest thing, like you said, and it took me a long time to get to where I am today.
Yeah.
So maybe just from a business point of view, I'll share that, and then I'll share how I really think I got to where I got to.
Yes.
So first of all, I did teaching. I was a teacher because I really wanted to do social work, but I didn't have money to go to varsity in those days. And I'll share that story just now. So I took teaching instead because you got a 4-year bursary. I could work it back. I didn't quite agree with the educational system at the time. Yeah. And I also had a personal issue, so I ran away from some of my problems and went to work in the States, in California, for a year as an au pair to 2 young girls there. And at the same time decided, well, I really want to explore the educational system there and see what it is that makes Americans so confident and have such a high sense of self-esteem.
Yeah.
And I really learned a lot. I learned a lot about what I didn't like, but also realized big lesson that you can learn from what you don't like as well. And how can we take the good out of that and use it? So I came back here with the full intention of going back there. But my grandfather at the time, I thought, was very old. In the meantime, he lived till 108 years old and only died in 2006. So,
wow.
Yeah, amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing man, an educator as well, humble. So I hope I learned a little bit of his humility as well. But I came back from overseas, and then I happened to fall into insurance as a life insurance broker, and then landed up also for a whole lot of, the universe just played out in so many different ways that I landed up eventually, after selling life insurance, going into a short-term insurance company. And I landed up going to sales manager, general manager. And really that's where I think a lot of the stuff started, in terms of looking at the people who were reporting into me and thinking, my goodness, all they do is ever cry, complain, whinge, whine, nobody works well together.
Yeah.
And so I decided, I was very lucky to have a mentor in my MD, whose name was Peter Haddon. He actually wrote a book called Be the Best You Can Be, or something like that. I can't remember the exact title. But he saw me as his protege, took me under his wing, and really got me into positive thinking, different way, being more resourceful. And I started running summer programs at the insurance company. And then I met my husband, fell in love, whatever you want to call it.
Yes.
Those things. Had 2 boys quite close together, and then another one later on. But it was at that time that I really wanted to make a bigger difference in South Africa. And big things happening 94, 95, as we know. And I decided, well, actually, instead of, hoarding tin food and all of that, let me do something different. Everybody was saying to me, are you mad? It's not a good time to go into your own business now. And I thought, actually, that's a perfect time, because while everybody else is doing nothing, I'm going to do something.
Yeah.
And so that was when I really decided I want to take everything that I've been through in my personal life, which I'll share just now, and then in my business life, and put it into a program that could help people to help themselves. So become more content, happy, successful with whatever they choose to do in their lives moving forward. And so in 96, I put my program together called Living Your Potential, because it really had been my opportunity to live my potential and help people, just give them the tools, whatever they could do from the lessons I had learned to be better than they were in any area of their lives. And that was, started Potential Unlimited organization in 1996.
Wow.
And have gone from there. I think in 2006, I was asked to do an exec coaching program for one of the reinsurance companies. And I thought, oh my goodness, how can I do that if I'm not an accredited coach or whatever, just my reputation and credibility is important.
Yeah.
And so I went to do my first coaching course, and have upskilled myself further since then. And it's been I've learned so much through this journey of helping others to really help myself. So that's the business side of how I got into where I am right now.
Yeah.
But the journey goes back a lot longer than that.
No, I mean, it's so interesting, because I think a lot of people follow a similar route. I think the important foundation that we do lie for ourselves is, as much as you enjoy helping people, you need to formalize and have a proper structure in place. So do the coaching, make sure that you get some credibility behind you, because it does really make an importance. Like a nice impact when you go into that from a business perspective. And I remember when I started my business, people were just going, well, why don't you just teach people what you know? And I had a lot of sales experience, I had a lot of stage experience, and I had a lot of NLP experience as my foundation to what I wanted to share. And I was like, okay, well, I'm going to put all of that stuff together and just teach someone. And that was my first client. Eventually became a Nedbank executive. But I think that's because I was passionate about it, and because I wanted to be able to share that with people. It's so important to really formulate some kind of foundation. When you say in terms of personal, what kind of personal journey adds to this?
Yeah, I think that is the foundation of everything I am today, is as a result of what I went through early on and the lessons I had to learn that have brought me to where I am today. And it's interesting because often people will say to me, do you regret anything in your life? And I suppose that sometimes, you get that twitch where you think, oh, and then I think, well, I wouldn't be where I am today had it not been for all of the stuff I've gone through. So no, I can't regret, because I can't change it. It's what it is. Mm-hmm. How can I make the best of it? And so I suppose it starts off with how I grew up. I come from a very dysfunctional family, and I love what Anthony Robbins always says, well, who doesn't? And the more people I speak to, the more dysfunctional we become.
Yeah.
So yeah, my dad was a rep. And it's interesting because I haven't really told the story apart from in my training sessions, to some people. So quite interesting that it's coming out now.
Yeah.
And I do a lot of soul searching around. Whoo, okay, let's put it out there. So so my dad was a rep, and he was away a lot of the time. He was a motor spares salesperson.
Yeah.
And so he was physically absent from our lives for for as long as I knew. And at the same time, he was emotionally absent because he would have lots of affairs. And I even remember I was young, I don't know, 7, 8, one night fast asleep. He had brought one of his girlfriends home, and my mother was there. I'll tell you that part of the story just now.
Oh, wow.
Yes. She had her own issues, which you'll understand why it works this way. I had gone to sleep, and in the middle of the night, my cupboard door flew open, and this apparition jumped out. Well, I didn't know what it was, but for many years, I took on a belief that you shouldn't sleep with cupboard doors open. I became OCD about it. I'd get up in the middle of the night and all of that. Only found out years later that she was actually my stepmother. She wasn't at the time, obviously, but she was my stepmother who he had hidden in a cupboard so I wouldn't sleep.
Dear.
But the mental models, the beliefs in about something that's not even true, but becomes your truth. Anyway, at the same time, my mother had what in those days was called a chemical imbalance, and today we know it as bipolar. And so growing up, for as long as I can remember, and I can't remember how many times, she would attempt suicide. And so my father was physically, emotionally absent. My mother was mostly spent her time in most of the mental institutions in Gauteng. It wasn't called Gauteng at the time. But I would come home from primary school and she had attempted suicide, been rushed off to a hospital. And so most of my afternoons were spent going to the hospital, sitting with her, doing my homework there. Weekends not wanting to be with friends because I would want to keep her alive. And so this was playing, I mean, what I'm talking about here, I had no idea in terms of, I just thought this was normal. Isn't everybody's family like this? And then my dad came home one day, and I don't know if my mom was home or if she was in a hospital. And he said to me, I'm divorcing you. Well, that's what I heard. He wasn't divorcing me, but it felt like it because I said to him, please don't go, I'll be good. And he left. And I took on that belief that I wasn't good enough, which then just became another mental model that I put in there. Oh my goodness, I messed up so many relationships because of that.
Yeah.
Believing, testing, in every relationship with a man, I had to test to prove that I was good enough. So, darling, do you love me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It becomes that theme. It becomes where you start functioning from it. And it's completely, I completely understand what you're saying. Yeah.
So it was, it's so debilitating. It's so messy. And I had no clue. And I think the need to prove myself to be good enough, and I had to have a relationship, because if I didn't have a relationship, then I couldn't, look, a man left me before, my father. So obviously if I'm not in a relationship, I'm not good enough. If I am, then it proves I'm okay.
Yeah.
So it took me many years.
So, and to that point, having this conversation, I think so many people don't realize that story is the story that permeates your life. It doesn't just stop when when you're home or when you're having a relationship. That I'm not good enough permeates into every facet of your life, and suddenly you're going for job interviews and and you don't maybe get it, and then you go, oh well, it's because I'm not good enough, and you go to a next relationship or something new, that's because I'm not good enough, and it permeates into everything, purely based on this one mental kind of decision that you've made for yourself, because you didn't really have reference to anything better or good in that moment. And I think that's what people, when people listen to this, is it really should be a conversation that people should be having, is kind of going, where are those moments that sort of solidify something that happened that you still live from on a day-to-day basis and you don't even realize, right? But sorry, carry on from there. Yeah.
I like to call it my pot of stew. So we carry this pot, and everything that happens to us, we put in there and we stir it, and that plays out and spills out into everything.
Yeah.
So it messes up. You're so right. Oh goodness, if the things that I did in work and at home to prove that I was good enough, and the pressure you put on yourself and on others was, and so I suppose I had the double whammy, because a few years later, my mother actually succeeded in committing suicide. And so now I was left with that as well. It's like, surely if we were worth it, because she would say, I don't want to burden you. And we'd say, but you're not a burden to us. Don't you get it? I suppose it was a burden. I mean, in a way, because I had to live with trying to keep her alive. And I took on that responsibility.
And all the guilt then kind of comes with it, because then you have to sit with the guilt of like, oh, what if I could do something? And
yeah. That took me years to come to terms with that. I actually was out of my control. It wouldn't have made a difference. But at the time, it just went in the pot and I stirred. And I was left with a younger sister and a younger brother. And I took on the role of having to be the strong, independent person. I don't need anybody. I actually realized and only more recently, realized how much I switch off to my feelings. And I thought I was a very feeling person, but when it suited me. So another thing that I'm only realizing later on in my life, that I wouldn't give myself completely, because you can get, people will leave you. My mother left me, my father left me. So you push away people. I remember my brother saying to me years afterwards, Heidi, I never wanted you to be my mother. I wanted you to be my sister. So that relationship was like a mess. My sister telling me, you think you're perfect. And I'm going, if only you knew how broken I am. But I have to appear perfect. I have to be a good girl as well. And that not being good enough. So everything had to be perfect, good enough. Geez, for so many years.
And as you're listening, I mean, there's so much that I relate to when you say this, but I think the question for me that stands out is, how do you go from what I mean, and it's not a simple strategy, but how do you go from that belief system? How do you go from that to empowering, where you're a businesswoman and you're suddenly a transformational coach? And absolutely, having been in that position, you have reference to it, and you have reference and you have story, and you have lessons that you've learned that you can share in the learnings, and that's what helps in a big way. But is there some kind of strategy that you noticed that lent itself to being able to transform?
I mean, that's such a good question. I've thought about it so often. And I've challenged myself on thinking about it, even with my clients, and think, I don't know if at the beginning, there was definitely no strategy at the beginning. It was survival. But I was lucky enough to have a very good friend who I was down after one of my relationships broke up again, and I was crying, and she came and she said, what's wrong? And I said, oh, men are terrible. Look, they always leave me. How horrible are they? And she went slap, 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 not physically, verbally, and said to me, actually, Heidi, there's nothing wrong with the men you go out with. There's something wrong with you. Wow. I mean, I think I told her in very nice French where to go.
and it's very difficult to hear that, because part of, and it's one of the things I've had to learn a lesson of, is you have relationship after relationship after relationship, and then you kind of look back into the past of like, okay, so if this is my story, what is the common denominator? And when you realize, oh my goodness, I am the common denominator, it's a knife edge to your heart. But when you get to the other side of it, you kind of go, okay, cool. So what does that mean? And how do I fix me? How do I show up in the world? And how do I start empowering my position, so that I start engaging, I start recognizing, from my reticular activation system, kind of going, okay, what would I like to start seeing in the world, and where am I focused? And so, I mean, it's to being able to have to admit to it. I think that is it's such a hard thing to do, but so many of us need to do it.
Absolutely. I thank her every day for that, because, I mean, when she was there, I didn't thank her. But when she left, the message remained. I couldn't get rid of that message. And her message to me was, you want people to like you, you don't even like yourself. You want people to love you, you don't even love yourself. You want people to see you add value, but you don't even believe you do. So how can they see it if you don't show up as that? And so I think it was that night that I made a decision that I would not go into another relationship or start anything new in any area of my life until I had worked with me. And I had to go for counseling. I really became a counselor because I knew that it would help me more. And so that's why I started counseling. Funny, I was sharing with a friend this morning that I landed up counseling a lot of my counselors because I was so strong and independent, and I'm not going to be vulnerable, but I had to go for counseling. So really getting other people to help me reflect, go look deeper at the stuff that was getting in my way. What were the self-limiting beliefs that had been playing out for me all the time? Were they serving me? And it's been a long journey of, even today, does what I do serve me or doesn't it serve me? How do I find the tools that are going to help me not be better than anyone else? Because hey, there's no such thing,
Yeah.
But it was really that going and looking back, and not looking back to be victim, because I had played victim for too many years, but saying victim is no longer serving me, but victim served me. Everything that happened to me really did help me survive.
Yeah.
So thank you for being who I was to help me survive. But is it going to get me to where I need to go going forward? And that was the switch for me.
But essentially, one of the things, and it's part of how I've also grown into what I am today, and the work that I'm fortunate to do is recognizing the drama triangle. I don't know if you know the drama triangle, but you find yourself in the victim, and if you're not in the victim, you're persecuting, and if you're not there, then you're trying to rescue someone. And it's this constant, and until you take that step back and you kind of go, okay, this is my drama, and how am I playing the part in this drama? And it's unfortunately, it just comes back to having that really tough discussion and that really self-acknowledgement of like, okay, well, this is my drama, and I'm either going to really empower the drama, or I'm going to draw a line in the sand and kind of go, okay, this is where it ends. It ends with me. And I think that's, in essence, it's so important to be able to get to that point, because it really when you get to the other side, and I always think of it as the other side of failure or the other side of fear. When you get to that other side, suddenly your brain goes, oh, wow, if only I recognized this even sooner, if only I started appreciating and understanding why I was part of that, I could now see. But hindsight is always, 20/20 vision kind of thing. So Heidi, in terms of, I'm looking at your LinkedIn here, and the difference maker. I love that. It's like, what do you do? I make a difference.
That is my purpose in life. Yes.
And from executive to business coaching, emotional intelligence, mindfulness, team coaching, change and resilience. Tell us just a little bit on that actual coaching processes and some of the areas that you do touch when you do your coaching processes.
So it's really about each client that comes to me. I work usually at an executive, middle management, senior management level for coaching. And each client comes with something different, but so interesting, because although that's so different, what they start off with, it all lands up being all the stuff that we've spoken about already that plays out in each one of our lives. Yeah. I was coaching an exec this morning, and he's gone through so much trauma, and we were just talking about exactly the same thing. You come in with certain ideas about what you want to get out of the coaching, but when you work through that process, it's around your life, it's around the beliefs you come into, what's getting in your way, what's helping you. Some of the business coaching, of course, is around the business stuff, which I believe you can't do well in that area until you've looked at who you are as a person. So really holistic approach to it. In terms of the resilience and that, I incorporate all that into the coaching, but I also facilitate high-performing teams. And also, it all starts with the individual. If you're not okay with you, you're not going to be okay with your family or your team members or whatever it is. So everything starts with you as an individual. And so it brings that out. into the organization, into the coaching, whatever it may be. I think it's also connected for me, but obviously in terms of what clients want, it's separate, from who I am, and it's really never my agenda. But I think having been through what I've gone through and the learning that I've had as a result of that, I am more. I'm very intuitive. I think I may not be, but I think I am. I've got that feedback. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
And I think for me, it's to really be there for my client, whatever it's a team or an individual, to be there for them to have their best journey to their best learning.
Yeah. So, as you're talking, one of the things that sort of like really stands out for me is the resilience. And I think in the face of adversity, we tend to, a lot of the time, freak out, or we feel completely disabled in the moment that you're not able to get yourself to a point. But essentially we get to a point where we start doing it, and we build a kind of something that we may not know at that moment what it is, but eventually when you're looking back again and you kind of go, what are those lessons? For me, one of my lessons is tenacity. I'm very much the kind of person who's like, tell me you're not going to be able to do something, and then my brain kind of gets mad, and I'm going, oh, you didn't say that, did you? So it becomes resilience, and the point that I want to make is, what is the resilience? How has that sort of stood out for you? Because to be able to go from where everything you've explained now, to transforming, to coaching, to how it's showed up in your own world, I'm getting a sense of that resilience, that unspoken resilience. What is the resilience for you? How have you put that together?
Wow. So I think the starting point for me was when I realized, and I don't know how it came about, the realization, when that just drops in, and I knew it.
Yeah.
That what I had carried for so long in my pot of stew around my father leaving me, my mother committing suicide, was actually, and all the interpretation of that, what it meant about me as a person, as a woman, a child, I realized one day that actually what my parents said and did, they said and did to me, but it was never about me. And that was my breakthrough, like that. And my father went and left us, not because I wasn't a good enough daughter, but because he obviously, I don't know, needed lots of women and not whatever he was doing with them. My mother killed herself, not because I wasn't a valuable person or a worthy being, but because she had her own issues, emotional, mental issues. And that has transformed my life, because and it didn't just drop in and make a difference. I had to work with it through the years, that actually what people say and do, they say and do to you. But mostly it's not about you, it's about them.
Yes.
That's been, I mean, amazing for me to, like, if my husband does something, I used to think it was about me. If a man did something or said something, it was also because I was the horrible person or not good enough. But actually, maybe they're going through their own stuff and it's got nothing to do with me. But my response to that has changed, where I would always take things personally, and boy, would I go victim. And then I go, in 10 minutes, I could be victim, persecutor, and rescuer.
Yes.
And I go, actually take a step back. And actually it's not about you, but it's been such a process. And the things that have really helped me is learning about how our brains work, understanding the neuroscience, that our survival is so strong. But with your survival brain going, I call it my lizard brain, because it doesn't do thinking, it just does feeling.
Yeah.
But that stops me from using my wizard brain, which is my prefrontal cortex, my thinking brain.
Yeah.
So that helped me be more resilient. Just being that stop in that moment, that pause, breathing, When I first heard about breathing, and they used to say, go do meditation, I can't sit there and go, it's just not me.
Yeah.
But I can do mindfulness breathing just for a few minutes. And practicing that has been life-changing for me. I never thought, I mean, if I heard myself saying this quite a few years ago, I would have laughed at myself.
Yeah.
I think sense of humor has also been my ability. My sister and I, my brother is overseas, but my sister and I, we some people tell us we've got a sick sense of humor, not sick, ill sense of humor, because we laugh at things, and like people, you're talking about something, you're laughing about your mother committing suicide. We're not laughing about that. We're laughing about the things that we could learn and enjoy from that.
Yeah.
And laughter, I mean, we know we release chemicals that are good for us when we laugh.
Yeah.
I love laughing, and some people think I'm crazy, but that's okay. I probably am anyway. Who isn't?
Yeah.
So, I mean, breathing, laughter, just taking time out in nature, exercising, eating healthy most of the time. Give me a chocolate and I won't say no. But those things have really helped me be more resilient.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, so as you're talking, just in the last 2 weeks, I've recognized how simple it really is, how simple a strategy can really be in how to actually change your story. And coaches, experts, entrepreneurs, business people, I mean, I speak to people 5 days a week with about exactly this. And that's, the theme that everyone gets back to is it's actually just a simple story. It's a simple strategy that you need to start taking, is building this, your self-awareness around it, being outside in nature, doing exercise, eating the right food. There's simple things in life. And I've personally experienced where people share the story because they want it to mean so much. And you kind of go, I get that you need it to mean that, but is that going to get you to where it is you want to go?
Yeah.
And that may not be your truth. It may just be simply stop with what you're doing and take your shoes off and go and sit on the grass and be quiet. And a lot of the time, kind of like people will go, well, I mean, that's just ridiculous. Like breathing, like meditation. What the hell are you talking about? But yet, as the theme that I'm coming across is at human level, what we need is the simplicity of how we do ourselves on a daily basis and what it is we're doing with ourselves in our lives. It doesn't necessarily have to be this greatest intervention and this life-defining moment. It can just simply be a simple strategy of, taking practical steps. But so if you could leave us with just some advice, and I know we're touching on it briefly, but three pieces of advice that you can from a transformational perspective, and how do we go through a bit of transformation and really get to that side? What advice could you give us to start a bit of transformation?
So I think the most important thing for me has been, and feedback from my clients has been around, don't take everything personally. Not everything is about you. So people can say and do things, but it's really not about you. And that has really been, when I share that with clients, that's one of the biggest things that they feedback on. The other thing is definitely the time out. Take some time out. I mean, if we just think of where we are in lockdown in the world with COVID and everything, those big interventions didn't help. It's the little things that we have to do. Like you were saying, the breathing, the taking time out in 2 minutes to breathe is going to make a huge difference in your life. But practice it regularly. Really find somebody you can talk to who's not going to buy into your victim playing, but is going to hold up the mirror for you. I think we enable too much victim playing and the drama. I'm not saying if something bad happens, you're not allowed to feel sorry for yourself. Of course you can. But if it's about somebody said something you don't like or something's happened, like take your time. I have a 3-minute rule. My 3-minute rule in life is you can choose to be unhappy, miserable, sad, stressed, depressed, angry for 3 minutes. or 3 hours, or 3 days, weeks, months, years, decades, some of us, or you
Yes.
can say after 3 minutes, is this serving me? And usually my answer is, hell no, it's not serving me.
Yes.
But I'm enjoying feeling sorry for myself, so I'm going to give myself another minute. And then after that other minute, I say, is what I'm doing, saying, feeling, helping me? And again, the answer is going to be no. Okay, Heidi, what are you going to do differently? And that allows me to feel and have my time, but it also helps me to take action, because if I don't take a different action, nothing's going to change for me. So
That's
those
fantastic.
are really things that help me.
Yeah, I'm so glad that you mentioned that, because when I did a lot of training for call centers, exceptional. Like I've done training with quite a few large brands in South Africa, and I had a 5-minute rule that you were allowed to complain for 5 minutes. You can go into your manager's office, and the managers can deal with it and go. Just complain. And say, okay, cool, I'm timing you. Go. Just get it out of your system. Complain, complain, complain. And the moment you're done, the next question is, what are you doing about it? Right? And it's true, because, like the simple strategy of whatever you're focused on, your brain's going to find supporting evidence to prove that it's real. So the more you focus on it, the more you're going to find. And so just stop. And where do we go from here? So I think it's profound advice, and if anyone can take away from that, it's great, do it, and then what are you doing about it?
Yeah.
So Heidi, if we want to get hold of you and we want to know more about you, where do we do that? Tell us more about your website and your social media and all of that.
Okay, so my cell phone number is 083 226 1347. My email, it's a long one.
Yes.
potentialunlimitedorg, all one word, at worldonline.co.za.
Okay.
And then my website is the same, www. I'm going to do it again. www.potentialunlimitedorg.co.za. And then I'm on Twitter as Heidi Poulton, at Heidi Poulton. And my LinkedIn is Heidi Poulton as well. And there you'll find the difference maker.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Awesome. So yeah, I mean, all that information will be shared in the description box below. And Heidi, thank you so much for sharing that information. It's so nice to be able to share like-minded information with like-minded people. And I'm going, yeah, I get it, I hear it. We have said that we're going to switch roles next week, or when we can make some time.
Yes.
And then we're gonna have this conversation about you're going to interview me.
Definitely.
No one has done that yet, so I'm quite excited to have that conversation. But Heidi, thank you so. I keep saying Heidi. Heidi, thank you so much for sharing, and thank you for making the time. We really appreciate you and your conversation today. Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin, and to all your listeners as well. Thank you. Really appreciate you, allowing me to do this with you as well. And I'm looking forward to next week.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Awesome. I'll chat to you soon.
Thank you. Bye.
Ciao.
Cheers.